I was sitting in the doctor's waiting room when my phone rang. It was my only daughter, Angela. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold, when she said, "Mom, we're traveling to Europe tomorrow. I've already sold your beach house and your car. We needed the money. Bye." I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this video, please minute like and subscribe to my channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it's traveled. And she hung up just like that. 45 years raising her, sacrificing for her, and she tosses me aside like I'm trash. But I took a deep breath and smiled because there was something my dear daughter didn't know. My name is Antonia. I'm 71 years old, and until that moment, I thought I knew my daughter. I had become a widow 6 months prior. My husband Robert died of a heart attack while we were having breakfast together, just as we had every morning for 45 years. That morning, he had served me coffee with milk and toast. As always, he had kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Angela had been more present in my life. Or so I thought. She came to visit 3 times a week. She helped me with the funeral arrangements and accompanied me to the market. She even suggested I go for a general checkup. "Mom, you need to take better care of yourself now that you're alone." Said, "Yeah, and she would say with that smile I thought was out of love, but now I understand was one of convenience. The beach house had been our sanctuary for years. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15 with a lot of effort and sacrifice. Every summer, we'd go there, build memories, and celebrate birthdays and Christmases. Angela brought her boyfriends, then later her husband, Edward. I would cook for everyone, clean, and do the laundry. It was our family tradition. I never thought she would see it as just money. And the car, that old Volkswagen that Robert cared for like his own child, washing it every Sunday, changing the oil religiously, always parking it in the same spot under the tree's shade. Angela knew what that car meant to me. It was the last thing I had left of him. His scent was still embedded in the seats. When she hung up the phone, I stayed sitting in that uncomfortable green plastic chair, surrounded by other sick people, and for the first time in months, I didn't cry. Something strange happened inside me, a calm I hadn't felt since Robert's death, because in that moment, I remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert had handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, put this in your dresser drawer. If something happens to me, open it after some time, but only when you feel ready." I put it away without much thought. Duh. After the funeral, with so much grief and so many arrangements, I simply forgot about it. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The nurse called me in to see the doctor. The doctor examined me. He said I was healthy for my age, that I just needed more rest and better nutrition. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was thinking about that envelope, about the coldness in Angela's voice, about how Edward was likely behind all of this. He had never liked me. He always saw me as a nuisance. I left the office and walked slowly toward the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Angela. But as I waited, I couldn't help but smile. There was something poetic about all of this. My daughter thought she had left me with nothing, but what she didn't know was that Robert, my dear Robert, had always been a man of foresight. And the bus arrived, and I sat by the window. I watched the city go by, the houses, the stores, people rushing here and there, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had my own too, and I was about to discover them. When I got home, I went straight to my bedroom. I opened the dresser drawer, and there was the manila envelope, exactly where I'd left it. My hands trembled a little as I picked it up. I could feel there were several documents inside. Robert had written my name on the front in his careful handwriting. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. It was starting to get dark outside, and the house was filling with those familiar shadows that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly as if I were unwrapping a birthday present. What I found inside would change everything. What I found in that envelope took my breath away. There were legal documents, deeds, bank certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. My eyes filled with tears as I read his familiar handwriting. "My dearest Antonia, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to protect you from worries. Over the years, I invested our savings in properties and businesses. We don't just have the beach house, we have 6 other properties, including the apartment building where Angela lives with Edward. We also have stocks in 3 companies that are worth more than you can imagine. You're rich, my love. You always were rich, but now you are on paper too. My hands trembled as I looked through the documents. There were deeds for houses in different neighborhoods of the city, a downtown apartment, a small hotel on the coast, and, indeed, the 20-story building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the silent owner for the past 10 years, but he had put everything under a company name I didn't recognize. And according to the papers, I was the sole heir of that company. There were also bank statements for accounts I never knew existed, numbers that seemed unreal. Robert had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he had also been a very shrewd investor. Every dime we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had multiplied in secret, and I never knew anything. In the letter, Robert explained that he had kept everything a secret because he didn't want me to worry about money, nor did he want Angela to know our real financial situation. You know our daughter, Antonia. If she knew we had so much money, her attitude would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not for what we have. What an irony. Our daughter had left us thinking we had nothing when we actually had everything. I couldn't sleep that night. I walked through the house, touching the old furniture, the decorations that Angela had always criticized for being outdated. I looked at the family photos hanging on the wall, especially the one where she was 5 years old and sitting on Robert's lap, laughing. Where had that sweet girl gone? When had she become so cold, so calculating? The next day, very early, the phone rang. It was Angela again. Her voice sounded different, softer, but I had already learned to distrust these changes in tone. Mom, how are you? I wanted to tell you that we've already transferred the money from the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it'll help you live for a few months while you look for something smaller. My share? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, Mom. Obviously, we weren't going to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We need the money for the investment in Europe. Edward has an incredible business opportunity there. 30% of my own things. How generous. I see, honey, and when are you leaving? This afternoon. Our bags are already packed. We're going to be away for at least 6 months. Maybe more if the business works out, but don't worry, Mom. When we get back, we'll help you find a small apartment, something suitable for your needs. Suitable for my needs, as if she knew what my needs were. Okay, Angela, have a good trip. Oh, Mom, I knew you would understand. You've always been so understanding. We love you so much. And she hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't since Robert died. The situation was so absurd it was comical. My daughter had stolen from me, kicked me out of my own house, and spoken to me with unbearable condescension, all to fund a European adventure that would probably be a disaster. But what bothered me most wasn't the money, it was the ease with which she had discarded me. 45 years of my life dedicated to her, of sacrifices, of unconditional love, and she had eliminated me from her life with a 2-minute phone call. That's what hurt. I checked my bank account online. Indeed, they had deposited an amount that probably seemed generous to them, but was a mockery to me. They had sold the beach house for much less than it was worth, surely because they needed the money fast, and Robert's car had been sold off for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window, I saw Angela and Edward loading suitcases into a taxi. He was carrying 2 enormous suitcases. She was carrying a travel bag that looked very expensive. I watched them laugh, kiss, and make plans. They looked like 2 teenagers excited about an adventure. They never looked toward my window. They never said goodbye. When the taxi left, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Robert's documents spread out on the table. I had to make some decisions. I could call a lawyer, reclaim my properties, and get back everything they had taken from me. But something told me there was a better way to handle this, a more educational way. I called George, the lawyer who had handled Robert's affairs. He had been at the funeral, offered his condolences, and told me that if I needed anything, I shouldn't hesitate to call him. Well, now I needed him. Mrs. Antonia, it's a pleasure to hear from you. How are you? I'm well, George. I need to see you urgently. I found some documents from Robert that I don't quite understand. Of course, you can come to my office tomorrow morning. I'll be there. That night, for the first time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Robert. He was sitting in his favorite chair reading the newspaper, just like every morning. And when he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you defended yourself." I woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't exactly happiness, but it wasn't the sadness I had felt for so many months either. It was something like determination. For the first time since Robert's death, I had a clear purpose. I was going to get back what was mine, but not in the way Angela expected. The next morning, I got ready more carefully than usual. I put on my burgundy dress, the one Robert always said made me look elegant. I styled my hair, put on a little makeup, and when I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in a long time. I saw a strong woman. George's office was downtown. It was an old but elegant building with marble floors and large windows. George greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the documents, his expression changed completely. "Mrs. Antonia, this is much more than I imagined. Robert was a very intelligent man. Look, according to these papers, you are the owner of—" "I know, George, I've already looked at them. What I need to know is what I can do legally." George explained that everything was in order, that the documents were legitimate, and that I was the rightful owner of all those properties. He also confirmed something I already suspected. The sale of the beach house had been illegal because Angela had no right to sell it. "We can reclaim the house immediately, Mrs. Antonia, and we can also proceed legally against your daughter for fraud." "No, George, I don't want to proceed legally. I want to do this another way. I want everything to be kept a secret for now. Can you help me?" George looked at me with curiosity, but nodded. "Of course, you're my client. What do you need?" "I need you to discreetly recover the beach house, do what's necessary to annul that fraudulent sale, and I need you to help me take real control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives." "I understand. It will be a process that will take a few weeks, but it's completely feasible." "Perfect. And George, I need no one to know I'm behind all of this, at least for now." When I left George's office, I felt as if I had woken up from a very long dream. I walked through the downtown streets, observing the people, the buildings, the life that continued its normal course. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The next few weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor widow who had been abandoned by her daughter, but in secret, I was a wealthy woman quietly orchestrating the recovery of her estate. George worked efficiently, and every few days he called me to give me updates on the progress of the legal procedures. I decided to stay in my house in the meantime. It was mine after all, even though Angela probably expected me to move into a boarding house room. Every morning I'd wake up, have breakfast at the same table where Robert and I had shared so many years, and then go for a walk in the neighborhood. The neighbors would greet me with that mixture of pity and curiosity they reserve for recent widows. Aurora, my lifelong neighbor, approached me one afternoon while she was watering the plants in her front yard. "Antonia, my dear, is it true that Angela went to Europe and left you alone?" "Yes, Aurora, she went with Edward. They have business plans there. And how are you going to live, honey? We all know Robert didn't leave much money. If you only knew, I thought. Don't worry, Aurora, I'll be fine. Do you need anything? I can bring you food, help you with groceries. You're very kind, but I'm really okay." Aurora looked at me with that expression I knew well. It was the same look I had received after the funeral, with compassion mixed with a little relief that it wasn't their tragedy. "Well, you know where to find me if you need anything." These conversations were constant. The butcher, the baker, the lady at the corner store, they all spoke to me in that soft tone they use with the unfortunate. And I would nod, smile, and thank them for their concern, but inside, a part of me enjoyed this performance. It was like living a double life. George called me on a Wednesday morning. "Mrs. Antonia, I have good news. I was able to annul the sale of the beach house. The buyers didn't know the sale was fraudulent, so they got their money back without any problems. The house is yours again." "Excellent, George. And the building where Angela lives?" "That one is more complicated. Technically, you've always been the owner through the company, but we need to make some administrative changes so you have direct control. It should take another 2 weeks." "Perfect. Keep me informed." After hanging up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and thought about Angela. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks, and I hadn't heard from her. Not a call, not a message, not even a postcard. To her, I had ceased to exist the moment she got the money she needed. But I knew that was going to change soon. I decided to visit the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the same route Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The house was exactly as I remembered it, small, painted, cream-colored, with a terrace that overlooked the sea. The new owners had put some potted plants out, but other than that, everything was the same. I sat on the curb across the street and looked at it for an hour. I remembered the summer afternoons when Angela was little, running on the beach building sandcastles, Robert grilling fish on the barbecue while I prepared salads in the kitchen, Angela bringing friends, then boyfriends, then Edward. All those happy moments that she had reduced to a simple commercial transaction. An older gentleman came out of the house and saw me sitting there. He approached me with curiosity. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. I'm just reminiscing." "You knew the former owners?" "Yes, I knew them very well." "What a shame what happened." "They told us the elderly lady was very sick and needed to sell quickly. We thought it was a bargain, but now it turns out the sale wasn't legal. We had to give the house back." "You knew them personally?" "No, we did everything through intermediaries, but they told us the daughter was handling everything because the mother couldn't." What a sad situation. If you only knew how sad it really was, I thought. Well, I'm glad you didn't lose your money. Yes, luckily, everything was resolved well, although now we have to look for another house. We liked this one a lot. I left there with a heavy heart. It wasn't just the money that hurt. It was the ease with which Angela had lied about me. She had invented a story about my illness. She had used my supposed vulnerability to justify her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that needed to be removed. That night, I called George again. "George, I need you to help me with something else. I want to get Robert's car back, too." "That will be more difficult, Mrs. Antonia. The car was in your name, but your daughter had a power of attorney that allowed her to sell it. How's that possible? Apparently, you signed that power of attorney a few months ago after your husband's death. Don't you remember?" There it was, the moment Angela had started planning all of this. I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought me, telling me they were to facilitate the funeral and inheritance procedures. I was so confused by grief that I signed without reading. How naive I had been. "I understand, George. Is there any way to get it back?" "We can try, but it will be more complicated. We would need to prove that you signed that power of attorney under deception or coercion. Let's do it. I want to get back everything they took from me." Over the next few weeks, I developed a strange routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widow everyone knew. I'd go out to buy essentials, talk to neighbors, and keep up appearances. But in the afternoons, I'd become a businesswoman. I'd study Robert's documents, talk to George, and plan my next move. I learned things about finance I never thought I'd need to know. I discovered that Robert had been much more intelligent than I had ever given him credit for. Each of his investments had been carefully calculated. The building where Angela lived, for example, was not only profitable from the rents, but was in a rapidly appreciating area. I also discovered that Edward, Angela's husband, had debts. A lot of debts. He had taken out loans using the apartment they lived in as collateral, without knowing that he wasn't the real owner. When the banks found out about this, he was going to be in serious trouble. George called me on a Friday with important news. "Mrs. Antonia, we have finished all the procedures. You now have total control of all your properties. I also recovered Robert's car. The buyer turned out to be an acquaintance of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in exchange for a small compensation." "Excellent work, George. Now, I need you to help me with one more thing. I want you to send a letter to my daughter." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction notice." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Antonia, are you sure you want to do this? It's your daughter, after all." "George, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking me. She treated me like I was trash. Now she's going to find out how important I really am." "I understand. You want me to send it to Europe?" "No, I want you to deliver it when she returns. I have a feeling that will be very soon." I wasn't wrong. That same afternoon, Aurora came running to my house with fresh neighborhood news. "Antonia, did you know that Edward is in trouble with the bank? My brother-in-law, who works there, told me they're investigating some loans he took out using the apartment they live in as collateral, but it turns out the apartment isn't his, really. Yes, and it seems Angela didn't know anything. They're saying she's going to have to come back from Europe to sort out this mess. What a complicated situation. Yes, and the worst part is, apparently, Edward lied to her about the business in Europe. There was no business, he just wanted to escape the debts he had here. Perfect. Everything was turning out exactly as I had expected. Angela had trusted Edward, she had sacrificed her relationship with me for him, and now she was discovering that he wasn't the man she thought he was. That night, I sat on the patio with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Robert used to say that the stars were the souls of people who had lived a full life, watching over their families from heaven. If that was true, then he was up there, watching his plan unfold perfectly. Thank you, my love, and I said to the sky, thank you for looking after me even after your death. The next day, George called me early. Mrs. Antonia, there's news. Your daughter just arrived in the country. She's at the airport alone. Yes, apparently Edward stayed in Europe. There are rumors they had a huge fight. I see. Did you send her the letter yet? I'm sending it today. She should receive it tomorrow. I hung up the phone and stood there in the kitchen, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. After so many weeks of silent planning, the time for the first real move had finally arrived. Angela was about to find out that her mother wasn't the helpless victim she thought she was. Angela arrived at her apartment on Tuesday night. I knew because Aurora, who seemed to have informants all over the neighborhood, came to tell me the next day. Antonia, your daughter returned last night. I saw her go upstairs with the suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale with bags under her eyes as if she had been crying the whole flight. Alone, completely alone. And something strange, Antonia. When the doorman asked her for the keys, she didn't have them. She had to ask the building manager to open the door for her with the emergency copy. Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he had probably decided not to come back. Or maybe Angela had found out something about him and had fled. In any case, my daughter was back and would soon receive my little welcome gift. George called me that same afternoon. Mrs. Antonia, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The doorman confirmed that your daughter received it personally. Perfect. How long did we give her? 30 days to vacate the apartment, as legal standards dictate. But Mrs. Antonia, are you sure you want to do this? She's your daughter after all. George, my daughter kicked me out of my own house with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking me. She treated me like I was trash. Now she's going to learn that actions have consequences. I understand. I just wanted to make sure you had considered all the implications. I've considered them, George, all of them. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed awake, imagining Angela's face when she read the letter. The initial confusion, then the disbelief, then the panic. She would probably think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her, but when she called to verify, she would discover that everything was completely legal. The next day, as if she had been waiting for my call, the phone rang at 8 a.m. It was Angela, and her voice sounded desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. Good morning, honey. How was Europe? Mom, I don't have time for that now. I got a very strange letter yesterday. It says I have to vacate my apartment in 30 days. It must be a mistake, right? Do you know anything about this? An eviction notice? How strange. From whom? From a company I've never heard of. It's called... Wait, let me find the letter. Robert Investments, Inc. Do you know this company? Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. No, honey, I've never heard that name. Are you sure the letter's legitimate? That's what I want to find out, Mom. I need you to help me. I don't know what to do. Edward left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman. And now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening. There was the confirmation. Edward had abandoned her, probably when the money ran out, or when he realized that the legal problems at home were more serious than he thought. As poor Angela, she had sacrificed her family for a man who was worth nothing. I'm so sorry, honey. Where are you now? I'm in the apartment, but I don't know for how long. Mom, can I come see you? I need to talk to someone. I don't have anyone else. The irony was perfect. Now that she was left without the man she had abandoned me for, she remembered she had a mother. Of course, honey, come whenever you want. I'm on my way now. I hung up the phone and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this performance. I put on my most conservative gray dress, tied my hair in a simple bun, and practiced my expression of a concerned but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected to see: a poor, vulnerable widow who had been abandoned by her own daughter. Angela arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was surprised at how bad she looked. She had lost weight, had deep bags under her eyes, and her expensive clothes looked wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. "Ma," she said, and for a moment I thought she was going to hug me, but she stopped as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. "Come in, honey. Do you want some coffee?" "Yes, please." We sat in the kitchen at the same table where I'd read Robert's documents weeks ago. Angela looked small in that chair, lost like when she was a child and came to tell me about her school problems. "Mom, I'm so sorry for how I left. I know I didn't treat you well." "It's in the past, honey." "No, it's not. I treated you badly. I said horrible things to you, and now—" Her voice broke. "Now I have no one. What happened with Edward? He left me for a 25-year-old waitress at a hotel in Paris. It turns out there was never any business in Europe. It was all a lie. He just wanted to escape the debts he had here and use the money from the sale of your house to finance his adventure." "All the debts?" "Yes, Mom, a lot of debts. It seems he had been taking out loans for years, using the apartment we lived in as collateral. But now I find out that he wasn't the owner of the apartment. So how is that possible?" This was my opportunity. "I don't know, honey. Property matters are very complicated. The problem is that now the banks are coming after me for his debts. They say since we were married, I'm also responsible. And on top of that, this eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I don't have money. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to live." She started crying, real tears of genuine desperation. And for a moment, my mother's heart softened. I wanted to hug her, to console her, to tell her that everything was going to be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called me from the doctor's office, the ease with which she had discarded me, the way she had spoken to me as if I were a burden. "Did you talk to an attorney about the letter?" "I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent all the money in Europe. Edward took what little was left when he ran off with that woman. So what are you going to do?" "I don't know. I thought maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I find a job and can get a small place to live." There it was, the question I had been waiting for. After kicking me out of my own house, after selling my things, after treating me like trash, now she wanted me to rescue her. She wanted the poor widow she had created to save her from the consequences of her own actions. "Of course, honey, this will always be your home." Angela looked at me with surprise, as if she hadn't expected it to be so easy. "Really, Mom, after everything that happened? You're my daughter, Angela. That will never change." She got up, and this time she did hug me. It was a desperate hug from someone who is drowning and clinging to the only thing they can find. I hugged her back, but not with the unconditional love from before. Now there was calculation in my hug, strategy. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden." "Don't you worry about that now. Rest, recover, and then we'll see what your options are." Angela left that afternoon to get some things from her apartment. I stayed in the kitchen thinking about how easy it had been. She had come to me exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options. And best of all, she didn't suspect a thing. To her, I was still the poor, abandoned mother who needed her compassion. But this was only the first part of my plan. Having her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I was going to let her settle in, feel safe, and believe she had found refuge in my house. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to teach her the difference between being poor by choice and being poor by consequence. That night, I called George. "George, I need you to do something else for me." "Tell me, Mrs. Antonia." "I want you to investigate Edward's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes to whom and what legal options I have to separate them from my daughter." "That will take time, but it's feasible." "Perfect. And George, I need you to keep this an absolute secret. No one can know that I'm behind this investigation." "Of course, Mrs. Antonia. May I ask what your final plan is?" "My plan, George, is very simple. I'm going to save my daughter. But first, she has to understand what it really means to hit rock bottom." When I hung up, I poured myself a glass of the wine Robert kept for special occasions. It had been a long time since I had such a special occasion as this. The game had begun, and for the first time in months, I held all the good cards in my hand. Angela moved into my house the next day. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a cardboard box, all that was left of her old life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the same one she had slept in during her adolescence, and I could see the humiliation in her every move. She had gone from living in a luxurious apartment to taking refuge in her childhood room. "Mom, I found this at the apartment," she said, showing me a manila envelope. "It was among Edward's things. It has your name on it." It was another one of Robert's envelopes. My heart raced, but I kept my composure. "My name? How strange." "Yes, look." She showed me the envelope. Indeed, it had my name written in Robert's handwriting. But this envelope was different from the one I had found in my dresser. This one was smaller, newer. "Maybe Edward found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to me," Angela said. "It's possible. Can I see it?" I opened the envelope in her presence. Inside, there was a short letter and a small key. The letter read, "Antonia, if you are reading this after having received the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a difficult time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the Central Bank, downtown branch. The number is 247. There is something there that can help you help her, but use it wisely. With eternal love, Robert." Angela read the letter over my shoulder. A safety deposit box. Dad had a safety deposit box. I had no idea. "I didn't either," I lied. "Your father never told me about this. Do you think we should go see what's there?" "I don't know, honey. Maybe it's better to leave things as they are. But Mom, maybe there's something important in there, documents or, I don't know, maybe something of value that can help us." The desperation in her voice was palpable. Angela was clinging to any possibility of finding a way out of her situation. And I was going to let her cling a little longer before showing her the full reality. "All right," I said after a calculated pause. "We can go tomorrow." That night, Angela and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She had cooked, trying to be helpful, but the food tasted of guilt and desperation. She told me more details about what had happened in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. "Edward lied about everything, Mom, not just the business, but also the debts. I thought he only owed a little money, but it turns out he owes over $100,000. And the worst part is he used my name for some of the loans without me knowing how that was possible. He forged my signature. When I married him, I gave him some documents so he could handle the bank procedures for our joint account. I never thought he would use them for this. Do you have any way of proving that you didn't know?" "I don't know. Everything is so complicated. The banks say that since we were married, I'm responsible for all his debts anyway. And the divorce, I don't even know where Edward is now. He completely disappeared. His phone is disconnected. He doesn't respond to emails, nothing. It's as if he vanished." Perfect. Edward had fled like the rat he had always been, leaving Angela to face the consequences of her actions alone. In a way, he had done me a favor. Now my daughter was experiencing exactly what I had felt when she abandoned me, the betrayal of someone she had trusted completely. "I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't know things were so bad." "I didn't either, Mom. I thought Edward loved me, that we were going to build something together, but it turns out I was just an easy way to get money and documents." Angela began to cry again. "How could I have been so stupid? How did I not realize what he really was?" It was tempting to tell her that I had seen the signs from the beginning, that I had tried to warn her that Edward never seemed trustworthy, but that would have broken my facade as a compassionate and vulnerable mother. Love can be blinding sometimes, honey. Don't blame yourself. "But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life. I ruined yours too. I treated you horribly. I took your house, your car, your things, and all to give them to a man who abandoned me at the first opportunity. It's in the past, Angela. No, it's not. Now we're both in trouble because of me. You lost everything Dad left you, and I lost my marriage and my future. We're two poor women trying to survive." If she only knew, I thought. If she only knew that right now I have more money than she can imagine, that I own the building where she lived, that I can solve all her problems with one phone call. But it wasn't time yet. The next day we went to the bank. Angela was nervous, hopeful. I maintained my act of a confused widow who didn't understand much about finance. The bank employee led us to the safety deposit boxes, verified my ID, and opened box number 247. Inside, there was jewelry, a lot of jewelry, rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. I recognized some pieces as heirlooms from Robert's family. Others were completely new to me. There was also a letter explaining the origin of each piece and its approximate value. Angela gasped. Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think? Yes, look at this emerald and this pearl necklace. Mom, Dad kept a treasure here. According to Robert's letter, the jewelry was worth approximately $200,000. It was a significant amount, but it was nothing compared to the rest of my estate. It was like finding some change under the couch when you have $1 million in the bank. What do we do with this, Mom? I don't know, honey. They're family mementos. But Mom, we could sell some pieces. With this money, you could get your beach house back, and I could pay off some of Edward's debts. There it was again. Even when she found something valuable, Angela's first reaction was to think about how to use it to solve the problems that Edward had created. She hadn't learned a thing yet. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Edward's debts? What other option do I have, Mom? If I don't pay something soon, the banks are going to seize everything I have, and technically I have nothing. Everything was in Edward's name. Think about it carefully, honey. Once you sell this jewelry, you won't be able to get it back. I know, but what else can I do? I can't get a job with all these pending legal issues. No employer will want to hire someone with so many legal problems. We took the jewelry home. Angela spread it out on the kitchen table and examined the pieces one by one, calculating which ones she could sell and which ones she could keep. It was painful to watch her reduce decades of family history to numbers on a piece of paper. Mom, I got $180,000 for the jewelry, she told me one afternoon, counting the bills on the kitchen table. It's less than I expected, but it's enough to pay off the most urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do this? I have no choice. If I don't pay something soon, they'll seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove that I have some kind of legal connection to the properties. How ironic the situation was. Angela was worried about losing a house that I owned, paying a man's debts with money from jewelry that had belonged to the same man who had created the fortune that could save her. And how are you going to decide which debts to pay first? I spoke with a free financial advisor at the bank. She told me to prioritize the debts that have real collateral because those are the ones that can affect properties or lead to immediate seizures. Angela had matured a lot in these few weeks. The woman who had sold my things without consulting me was now carefully investigating every financial decision. The suffering had made her more responsible, but also more fragile. That night, while she was organizing the debt documents at the table, I received a call from George. Mrs. Antonia, I have important news. We managed to locate Edward. Where is he? In Paris, as your daughter suspected. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to get French residency through a fake marriage with that young woman your daughter mentioned. A fake marriage? Yes, apparently the girl needs papers and he needs a way to stay in Europe without being deported, but the most important thing is that we found evidence that he deliberately falsified your daughter's documents with the intention of fleeing the country. That means Angela can be freed from the debts. With this evidence, yes, we can prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter wouldn't have to pay anything that Edward did behind her back. It was perfect. I had a way to save Angela from all her debts legally, without her suspecting that I had the money to do it. George, I want you to start the legal process immediately. Tell your daughter? No, not yet. I want the process to be completely finished before I tell her anything. I don't want to give her false hope. Understood. This will take about 3 weeks, maybe a month. Perfect. When I hung up, Angela looked at me with curiosity. Who was that, Mom? A lady who was asking about Mrs. Rodriguez, the neighbor on the corner. She had the wrong number. Lying had become easy. With each passing day, I felt more comfortable with this double life I was living. On one hand, I was the poor, abandoned mother Angela believed me to be. On the other, I was a wealthy woman, quietly orchestrating my daughter's salvation and education. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Angela struggle with decisions she had never had to make. How to stretch the money for food, how to negotiate with creditors, how to look for a job when your credit history is ruined. It was a cruel but necessary education. I went to 3 job interviews today, she told me one afternoon, coming home with swollen feet and a tired face. At 2 of them, they told me they can't hire me because of the pending legal problems. At the 3rd, they offered me a part-time job cleaning offices at night. Are you going to take it? I have no choice. It pays very little, but it's better than nothing. And I can work at night so I can keep looking for something better during the day. Seeing my daughter, who had lived a comfortable life for over 40 years, preparing to clean offices at night broke my heart, but it also filled me with pride. She was finally facing reality without expecting someone else to solve her problems. Are you sure you can handle so much physical work? I'm going to have to learn. I can't keep being a burden to you, Mom. It's already enough that you're letting me live here for free. This is your home, Angela. No, Mom, this is your home, and I'm here because of your generosity, but I'm not going to take advantage of that forever. One night, while Angela was on her first cleaning shift, Aurora came to visit me. She sat in the kitchen with me, drinking tea and observing the family photos that adorn the walls. Antonia, I have to ask you something. Did you know Angela was going to come back in these conditions? What do you mean? Well, when she left, she seemed so sure of herself, so arrogant. She talked about the great life she was going to have in Europe, about how successful Edward was, and now she's back completely broken, working as a cleaner, living with you again. Life has many turns, Aurora. Yes, but there's something else. I've been observing Angela these days, and she looks different. Not just sad, but humble, as if she learned something important. Aurora had always been very perceptive. What do you think she learned? I think she learned the value of the things she had taken for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally. Maybe. Antonia, can I tell you something? When Angela left and treated you so badly, many of us thought you would never forgive her. But here you are, taking care of her again, giving her a home when she has nowhere to go. She's my daughter, Aurora. Yes, but not all mothers would do what you're doing, especially after being treated the way you were treated. If Aurora only knew the whole truth, that I had the power to solve all of Angela's problems, but was choosing to let her suffer a little longer so she would learn the complete lesson. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? I think you're doing what a good mother would do, but I also think Angela needs to fully understand what she lost when she abandoned you. What do you mean? I think she needs to value you not just as the mother who rescues her when she's in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not just need you. Aurora had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly the point of my whole plan. I didn't want Angela to come back to me out of desperation. I wanted her to come back out of genuine respect and mature love. And how do you think that can happen? I think it's already happening. I've watched her these past few days, Antonia. The way she talks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the daughter who gives you orders or treats you like a burden. Now she's an adult woman who is genuinely grateful to have a mother like you. That night, when Angela returned from her job, I saw her arrive tired but with a new dignity. She had earned those few dollars with her own effort, and that meant something to her. How was your first day? Difficult, but not as bad as I thought. The other women who worked there helped me a lot. One of them, Mrs. Carmen, taught me tricks to clean more efficiently. Mrs. Carmen? Yes, she's 60 years old and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She told me she started after her husband left her with 3 small children. She says it's not the job she dreamed of, but it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds like a wise woman. She is. She told me something that made me think a lot. What did she say? She told me that there are 2 types of people who end up doing this job. The ones who are here because they didn't have opportunities, and the ones who are here because they ruined the opportunities they did have. She asked me which group I was in. And what did you say? I told her the truth, that I had all the opportunities in the world, a family that loved me, a stable home and inheritance, and that I ruined it all by following a man who was worth nothing. What did she say? She laughed and said, "Now, well, honey, then at least you know exactly why you're here. That puts you one step ahead of most people." Angela poured herself a glass of water and sat with me at the table. Mom, I want you to know something. These past few days have been the most difficult of my life, but also the most important. Why? Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money. It's not living in the most luxurious apartment. It's not impressing people. It's having people who genuinely love you, who are there when everything falls apart. Angela, so no, let me finish. You have every right to hate me for what I did to you. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I took everything Dad left you. I treated you like you were a nuisance, and now I'm here again, expecting you to forgive me and take care of me. I already forgave you, honey. But I haven't forgiven myself, and I'm not going to until I prove that I've truly changed, that I've learned from my mistakes. George called me the next morning. Mrs. Antonia, I have excellent news. The legal process is almost complete. We can free your daughter from all of Edward's debts. It was time. After weeks of watching Angela struggle, work, and reflect on her mistakes, the moment had finally come to show her that she had never been alone, that she had always had someone quietly looking after her. George, I want you to arrange a meeting. It's time for my daughter to know the whole truth. George scheduled the meeting for Friday morning at his office. I told Angela that I had arranged an appointment with an attorney who could help her with her legal problems, but I didn't explain the details. She agreed to come, although she was nervous about the cost of the consultation. Mom, I don't have money to pay an attorney. I can barely cover my basic expenses. Don't you worry about that now, honey. We'll go and listen to what he has to say. We arrived at George's office right on time. Angela had dressed in her best clothes, which now looked a little big on her thinner body. She was nervous, wringing her hands, expecting another piece of bad news on her endless list of problems. George greeted us with his usual professional smile. Mrs. Antonia, Miss Angela, thank you for coming. Thank you for seeing us, Angela replied. Although I should warn you that my financial situation is very complicated, and I probably can't afford high fees. That's exactly what we're going to talk about, George said, exchanging a look with me. But first, I need you to review these documents. George handed Angela a thick folder. She opened it and began to read, her expression gradually changing from confusion to surprise. I don't understand. These documents say that Edward forged my signature, that there is evidence of fraud, that I'm not responsible for the debts. That's right. We've been investigating your case for the past few weeks. We found enough evidence to prove that you were a victim of identity fraud. But how is that possible? Who paid for this investigation? I don't have money for this. George looked at me. It was my moment. Angela, there's something I need to tell you. What is it, Mom? I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I was finally going to reveal the truth. Your father left me more than you knew, much more. What do you mean? George, show her the other documents. George took out a second folder and handed it to Angela. This time, the documents were the property deeds, the bank statements, the investment certificates, the entire estate that Robert had built in secret. Angela read in silence for several minutes. Her face went through a full range of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally comprehension. Mama, this says you own the building where I lived? Yes. And that you have other properties, bank accounts, investments? Yes. This means that when I sold the beach house, it was my house, and the sale was fraudulent? I've already recovered it. Angela stared at the papers, trying to process the information. How long have you known this? And since the day you called me from the doctor's office. You knew all this when I came back from Europe asking for help? Yes. You knew you could solve all my problems when you saw me crying every night? Yes. There was a long, tense silence. Angela closed the folders and looked me straight in the eyes. Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer if you could have helped me? This was the question I'd been waiting for weeks. Because you needed to learn something that you couldn't learn in any other way. What? You needed to learn the value of the things you had lost. The value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you abandoned me, it wasn't just money you took from me. It was dignity, it was love, it was trust. Angela began to cry, but they weren't tears of self-pity like the ones she had shed during these weeks. They were tears of deep understanding. I abandoned you when you needed me most? Yes. I treated you like trash? Yes. And you saved me anyway? Yes, but not in the way you expected. I didn't save you by giving you money so you could continue making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself. George discreetly intervened. Miss Angela, your mother has paid all the legal expenses to free you from Edward's debts. She has also recovered all the properties that were sold fraudulently. You are completely free of legal problems. And the cleaning job I got? You can quit if you want, I said. But I hope you don't. Why? Because that job is teaching you something you never learned when everything was easy. It's teaching you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, the importance of valuing every dollar you earn. Angela wiped her tears and looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. It wasn't the look of a daughter who needs her mother, but the look of an adult woman who respects another woman. Do you forgive me, Mom? I forgave you a long time ago, honey. The question is whether you can forgive yourself. I don't know if I can. I did unforgivable things. People make mistakes, Angela. The important thing is what we do after we recognize those mistakes. George left us alone in his office for a few minutes. Angela and I sat in silence, processing everything that had happened. Mom, I want you to know something. Even if you didn't have all this money, even if you were really the poor widow I thought you were, I would have learned the same lesson. What lesson? That there's nothing more valuable than having someone who loves you unconditionally. During these weeks, the only thing that kept me sane was knowing that I had a home with you, that no matter how much I'd ruined my life, you were still my mother. That will never change, Angela. I know, but I also know that I can't take that love for granted anymore. I have to earn it every day with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just with words. We left George's office with a completely new relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter, united by blood and habit. We were two adult women who had chosen each other after going through the most difficult test possible. The following weeks were for rebuilding, but not the kind Angela expected. Although she now knew that I had enough resources to solve all her problems, she decided to keep her night cleaning job. Mom, I need to finish what I started, she told me one afternoon as she was getting ready to go to work. I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened. Are you sure you don't have to punish yourself forever? It's not a punishment, it's a way of remembering who I was and who I want to be now. I watched her put on her work uniform, something unimaginable a few months ago when she lived in the luxurious apartment with Edward. But there was something different in her posture and the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who had arrived at my door crying. She was someone who had found dignity in honest work. Aurora came to visit me that afternoon, as she had every few days since Angela had returned. Antonia, I have to confess something, she said as she poured herself a second cup. At first I thought you were very cruel to Angela. And what do you think now? Now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Just look at her. It was really true. The Angela who was in the living room studying for her exams was completely different from the one who had gone to Europe months ago. This Angela had a serenity that came from within, a confidence that was based on her own accomplishments, not on material possessions. Did you know that yesterday I saw Angela at the market buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her job? She didn't tell me, and when I asked her why she was using her own money instead of the government's budget, she told me that some things can't be measured in official budgets. Aurora smiled. That's not the Angela who went to Europe. No, it's not. This Angela understands that money is a tool, not a goal. She understands that dignity comes from work and respect, not from material possessions. That night, when Angela returned from work, she found me reading in the living room. Mom, I have to tell you something. What happened today? Mrs. Carmen asked me if I was the daughter of the rich lady from the North End. What did you say? I told her yes, that you have enough money that I don't have to work. And do you know what she asked me after that? What? She asked me why I'm still working, so I explained that it's because I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. And what did she say? She laughed and told me, honey, that's the difference between being rich and acting rich. Your mom taught you to be truly rich. Mrs. Carmen is very wise. She is, and she made me understand something important. It's not about the money you have, but how you use it and how you relate to it. Angela sat with me on the sofa. Mom, I want you to know that I've made a decision. What? I'm going to stay living here with you, but not as a daughter who returns to her parents' house. I want to stay as an adult woman who chooses to share her life with her mother. What's the difference? The difference is that I'm going to pay my share of the expenses. I'm going to contribute to the upkeep of the house, and I'm going to treat this relationship as a partnership between two independent women who love and respect each other. Angela, you don't need to. Yes, I do, Mom. I need our relationship to be different from what it was before. Before I was a daughter who took her mother's love and care for granted. Now I want to be an adult woman who values and takes care of the most important relationship in her life. And your job? I'm going to keep working, but not necessarily cleaning offices forever. I want to study. I want to prepare myself to do something more meaningful with my life, but I want to do it step by step, earning every opportunity. Do you have any idea what you want to study? Yes, I want to study social work. These past few weeks taught me how many people are going through difficult situations without having anyone to support them. I want to use the resources we have to help other women who are going through what I went through. It was perfect. Angela had not only learned to value what she had, but she had also found a way to use her experience for something constructive. And what about Edward? George told me that he was arrested in France for the fraudulent marriage. He's going to be deported soon, but honestly, Mom, I don't care anymore. That part of my life is over. You don't feel any resentment? No, Edward did me a favor without knowing it. If he hadn't abandoned and betrayed me, I would have never hit rock bottom. And if I had never hit rock bottom, I would have never truly learned to value what I have. That night, for the first time in months, I went to bed completely at peace. My plan had worked perfectly. Angela had not only learned the lessons she needed to learn, but had emerged from the experience as a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate person. Robert would have been proud. 6 months later, our life had found a new balance that neither of us would have imagined before. Angela finished her social work studies with excellent grades, and I decided to use part of my resources to establish a foundation that would help women in situations of domestic violence and economic abandonment. Mom, the letter from the university arrived, Angela said one morning, coming into the kitchen with an envelope in her hands. They accepted me into the master's program. That's wonderful. When do you start? Next semester, but Mom, I want you to know that I'm going to pay for it with my own savings. I've been saving money from my job at the government office where I work now. Angela had gotten a job in social services after graduating, helping families in crisis. The salary wasn't high, but she had learned to live with the essentials and to value every dollar she earned. Are you sure? We can easily afford the master's. I know, but I need to do it on my own. It's part of who I am now. Aurora arrived that afternoon for tea, as she had every Friday for the past few months. She had become a confidant to both of us, observing our transformation with fascination. Antonia, I have to confess something, she said, as she poured herself a second cup. At first I thought you were very cruel to Angela, and now what do you think? Now I think you were the wisest mother I've ever known. Look at your daughter. Just look at her. It was truly the truth. The Angela who was in the living room studying for her exams was completely different from the one who had gone to Europe months ago. This Angela had a serenity that came from within, a confidence that was based on her own achievements, not on material possessions. Did you know that yesterday I saw Angela at the market buying vegetables for a family she's helping through her work? She didn't tell me, and when I asked her why she was using her own money instead of the government's budget, she told me that some things can't be measured in official budgets. That night, Angela and I had dinner on the patio, something we had made a tradition. It was our time to talk about the day, plan the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. Mom, I received a very strange letter today, she said while cutting her salad. From whom? From Edward. My muscles tensed. Edward, he wrote to you from where? From prison in France. Apparently he was sentenced to 2 years for the fraudulent marriage. In the letter, he says he regrets everything he did, that he wants to ask for my forgiveness. And how do you feel about it? Honestly, I feel nothing. No anger, no sadness, no desire for revenge. It's as if that part of my life happened decades ago, not months ago. Are you going to write him back? No, not because I hate him, but because there's nothing to say. That Angela who married him no longer exists. This Angela has nothing to say to him. I was impressed by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting across from me had developed an inner strength that came from hitting rock bottom and getting back up on her own. Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom? What? That true love isn't the one that tells you what you want to hear. True love is the one that teaches you what you need to learn, even when it hurts. It's a difficult lesson to learn, yes, but a necessary one. Edward told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special. He convinced me that I deserved a life of luxury without effort. You taught me that true wealth comes from work, respect, and genuine relationships. That night, after Angela went to her room to study, I sat on the patio alone, looking at the stars and thinking about Robert. I had promised him that I would take care of our daughter, and I finally felt that I had fulfilled that promise in the right way. I hadn't taken care of her by giving her money when she needed it. I had taken care of her by teaching her to take care of herself. I hadn't saved her by solving her problems. I'd saved her by allowing her to learn to solve them on her own. The next day was Sunday, and we had planned to visit the beach house together for the first time since I had recovered it. Angela hadn't wanted to go before, saying she needed time to process everything that had happened. "Are you ready?" I asked her as we got into the car. "I think so." The trip was silent but comfortable. When we arrived, Angela stood for a moment in the car, looking at the house where we had spent so many family summers. "It looks exactly the same," she said finally. "Some things don't change, but others do. I'm not the same person who sold this house." We went in together. The house was clean and tidy, exactly as Robert and I had kept it for years. Angela walked through each room, touching the furniture, looking at the family photos hanging on the walls. "Mom, I want to ask for your forgiveness." "You already asked me for forgiveness, honey." "No, I want to ask for your forgiveness specifically for this house, not just for selling it, but for reducing all our family memories to a commercial transaction." "It's already forgiven. This house represents 40 years of family summers, birthdays, Christmases. Dad built that patio with his own hands. You planted that garden, I learned to swim at that beach, and I turned it all into money to finance the adventure of a man who was worth nothing." She sat on the sofa where Robert used to read on Sunday mornings. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" "What?" "That when I sold it, I didn't feel anything. It was just another property. Now, being here again, I can feel Dad in every corner. I can hear his laugh, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He's here, Angela. He's always been here. I know. And I also know that he's proud of how you handled all of this. We spent the whole day at the house, cooking together, cleaning, fixing small details. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values that the place represented. As the sun began to set, we sat on the patio that Robert had built, looking out at the sea. "Mom, I have a proposal." "What?" "I want us to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women who are escaping domestic violence situations, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives." It was the perfect proposal. Robert would have loved the idea that his beach house would serve to help other families. "That sounds like a beautiful idea, honey. We can use some of the foundation's resources to maintain it, and I can supervise the program through my job. Are you sure you want to turn our family sanctuary into that, Mom?" "The best sanctuaries are the ones that are shared. Dad always said that a house isn't truly a home until it opens its doors to other people who need love." He was right. Robert had always been generous with our home, inviting in relatives, friends, and neighbors who needed a place to stay. We returned home that night with a new project and a completely renovated relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter united by obligation or need. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before I fell asleep, I spoke to Robert in silence. "We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understood what really matters, and for the first time since his death, I felt that he answered me. I always knew you would. Both of you are stronger than you think." Justice had arrived not as revenge, but as education, not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, we had both gained something much more valuable than money. We had gained an authentic relationship built on a solid foundation that no future crisis could destroy. Did you enjoy my story? From which city are you listening? Let's meet in the comments. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks, which helps me continue bringing you more stories. Thank you sincerely for your kind support. On the screen, you'll find 2 more life stories that I highly recommend. There is so much more waiting for you on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.